You remember the name Clyde Edwards-Helaire because for a moment he looked like the kind of homegrown playmaker Kansas City had been waiting for. Drafted late in the first round back in 2020, he burst onto the scene with a rookie season that had Chiefs fans buzzing, and for a while it felt like he might be a long-term piece in Andy Reid's offense. Fast forward to now, and you're watching that same player suit up in a different uniform, the New Orleans Saints, on a late preseason afternoon. He got on the field and did the kind of little things that mattered to coaches: a few tough one-yard runs, a couple of reliable catches that moved the chains, and enough polish in his reps that analysts are already wondering if he's earned a roster spot. It's not always the flashy stat lines that win jobs in August. Sometimes it's the situational plays and the willingness to fight for those extra yards, and that's exactly the picture Clyde painted in his recent outing. If you followed his journey, you know it hasn't been a straight line. There were injuries that limited him and a really tough stretch that led to him missing most of 2020 before the Chiefs ultimately moved on. So seeing him put together a composed, effective performance in a Saints jersey is a bittersweet moment for a lot of us. You feel hopeful for him. You can't help but wonder what might have been in KC, and you're also curious what this means for both teams going forward. Before we dig deeper, quick favor: if you like this kind of behind-the-scenes Chiefs coverage and want to help this channel grow to 5,000 subscribers, hit subscribe and tap the bell so you don't miss roster updates. And if you enjoy this video, smash the like button to help more fans find it. Now tell me in the comments, do you want Clyde to make a full comeback and prove he's still a difference maker in the league? Type yes or no below and say why. Clyde's showing in that preseason till may not jump off the stat sheet, but if you know how NFL coaches evaluate camp snaps, you know the context matters more than raw numbers. In that game he had a handful of touches, a few carries and a couple of catches, and while those totals won't headline the sports page, every one of those plays mattered because they came in short yardage and third down reps that matter most when depth charts are finalized. Coaches aren't just watching highlight reels in August. They're grading decisiveness, ball security, route discipline, and how a back reads blocks against NFL defenses. On the plays where he was tested, Clyde showed better situational awareness and more polish than we'd seen from some of his later Chiefs reps, and that's the kind of tape that turns questions into trust. New Orleans isn't looking for him to be the Belko. They're evaluating whether he can be a reliable rotational piece, a third down option, or a special teams contributor. Based on what beat writers are saying, that's exactly the lane he's fighting for. And it's why analysts suggested his preseason outing may have put him in serious contention for an RB3 role on the Saints roster. So here's a quick ask for you. Based on that short stat line and knowing how teams evaluate preseason play, do you think Clyde deserved to earn a roster spot after that game? Drop yes or no in the comments and tell me which single play convinced you either way. To really understand why this preseason moment matters, let's rewind to the beginning of Clyde's NFL story. In 2020, the Chiefs used the 32nd pick on him out of LSU, and on paper it felt like a perfect fit, a shifty, low center of gravity runner who could catch the ball out of the backfield, paired with Patrick Mahomes in an offense that loves versatile weapons. His rookie campaign wasn't just about potential. He delivered more than 800 rushing yards and added over 200 receiving yards, giving fans legitimate reason to believe he could grow into a featured role. For a while, his skill set seemed to complement what Kansas City wanted: explosive plays in space, an ability to convert short yardage, and a receiving game that fit Mahomes' strengths. But the NFL is brutal with availability, and injuries quietly chipped away at both his playing time and the momentum he'd built. Over the next few seasons, he missed opportunities to sustain that early growth. Availability slipped, confidence wavered, and by 2020 he missed most of the season. Beyond the physical setbacks, he also faced mental health challenges that he's been open about, and that struggle is an important part of the story because it reminds us these are people, not just stats. When Kansas City was in a Super Bowl window and Isaiah Pacheco emerged, the roster calculus changed and the organization moved on. Looking back at Clyde's arc, it reads as a series of highs and lows, a first-round promise, a bright rookie bookend, then the frustration of injuries and missed time. That's why this Saints preseason cameo is more than just numbers, it's a test of resilience. For him, every rep is an audition to prove he's still a viable NFL option, and for us as fans, it's a reminder that careers are rarely linear. Now let's place him into the Saints' context, because fit determines opportunity. New Orleans enters the season with Alvin Kamara at the top of the depth chart, a proven, versatile starter who can shift formations and create mismatches. Behind him, Kendra Miller is viewed as the promising young backup with upside, and Cam Akers' arrival this offseason added another experienced option to the mix. That's a crowded backfield, and in that room, every rep is crucial. But modern roster building at running back isn't about finding a single workhorse as much as it is about assembling complementary pieces. Teams value specialists, a pass-catching third down back, a short yardage grinder, and players who can contribute on special teams. Clyde doesn't need to be the feature guy, he needs to be the reliable option who can handle specific assignments, grinders between the tackles, soft hands on checkdowns, and hustle on kickoff or punt coverage. If he can show coaches he's dependable in those roles, his chances of sticking rise significantly. Special teams, in particular, is often the tiebreaker for fringe roster players. If Clyde can be a steady presence there, it gives coaches a reason to keep him as depth. So here's a question for you. If Clyde does stick with the Saints, what role should they use him in most? Passing downs, short yardage, or primarily special teams? Drop your pick in the comments and explain briefly why. So what does all of this mean for the Chiefs and for you as a fan? First, it's a reminder of how quickly the NFL moves and how a team's needs can shift from one season to the next. The Chiefs weren't ignoring Clyde's talent when they moved on. The roster had evolved, other backs stepped up, and the team was prioritizing what it believed gave them the best chance to win now. Still, seeing a former Chief find traction elsewhere highlights the human side of roster moves. These players poured sweat into wearing red and gold, and sometimes a fresh start is exactly what reignites a career. For Kansas City, Clyde's progress is a lesson about drafting, development, and depth management, how the team finds role players, how injuries and personal challenges can derail a promising arc, and how flexibility in the roster is essential. For Clyde, it's about resilience, bouncing back after injuries, addressing the mental health hurdles, and proving to a new locker room that he belongs. For you, it's a moment to reflect on the players who once gave you hope in a Chiefs jersey and to follow how their stories evolve. Do you want more Where Are They Now updates on former Chiefs? If so, drop the name of the player you'd like me to cover next. I'll prioritize the most requested names and bring those updates to you. Before I close, one last push. If you enjoyed this breakdown, please like the video and subscribe. We're building this community of die-hard Chiefs fans, and every like, comment, and subscription helps us grow toward our goal of 5,000 subscribers, so I can bring you more roster analysis, training camp updates, and player stories. And while you're in the comments, don't forget to answer the polls we ran earlier. Did Clyde earn a roster spot? Where should the Saints use him? And which former Chief would you like to see covered next? I read those replies and they shape the next videos. Clyde's journey may have taken him to New Orleans, but his story will always have a Kansas City chapter, and watching how it unfolds gives us a fuller appreciation for the players who passed through this franchise. Thanks for sticking with me. I'll keep tracking Clyde's snaps and the Saints' depth chart, and I'll bring you updates as cuts happen and the regular season approaches if you want.